Leanne, thank you very much indeed. And for those of you that just joined us, we're busy talking about sports. Before the break, we were talking about transformation, and we're just going to close that off a little bit just now. But also, we're looking forward to 2022 because the Commonwealth Games in their 100-year history are coming to Africa for the first time, and they're coming to the city of Durban, and we'll be chatting about that and what it means for South Africa and perhaps even the continent as a whole. Are these economically viable? Start tweeting, start asking your questions. But just before we go to the floor, because Tabis has caught up with the chairperson of the Eminent Persons Group, he's going to have the last word on transformation. But just before that, Minister, we got some tweets that were coming through and some thoughts that people were kind of wanting addressed, and maybe you can deal with them. One of them is, you talked about access at schools and working with Mayor Angie Motshekga. Are we building these facilities? Is there a plan to build cricket fields in Soweto and all this infrastructure that's required? Somebody says that we need more recreation centres actually than are there. So is there a build in play?
I agree with our listeners at home. I've been campaigning in cabinet vociferously. I've been campaigning vociferously that the municipal infrastructure grant says 15% of that must be allocated for sports facilities in the communities. What people are talking about, ovals and all of that. But municipalities are not implementing that. Because what do? If you are toying for a borehole, they take that money. We can't waste money with facilities when people don't have a borehole. Justifiably so, because they are competing priorities. What I've asked is that give us the 15%, which my department have done calculation, 2 billion rand over, annually, that will be allocated to us, and we roll out these facilities. Then you can ask Minister Mbalula about facilities. I've got 800 million allocated to my department. And in that 800 million, I've got a clean audit. I'm chasing the second one. I've never faltered in my department. No corruption, no over expenditure, proper stuff. Now, I have said that, give me some more. And then I can't get some more because they are competing priorities. But there is money in government. I'm not asking for new money. There is MIG. Give me that money, you will see Erasmus day in and day out. And then I said, give me that money, I will be able to respond to this question adequately. I will never lie to you and say that my department has got the capacity to even build an oval park in Soweto, except those who were built by Dr. Ali Baga with the Cricket World Cup and left them there for patches in Soweto. And when you go there, you won't find them because these are the places that are gathering, all sorts of things because they no longer being used for cricket development. Simple, Peter. The question is, let's get the 15% and implement the rollout of sports facilities wherever we can in South Africa. Then next week, or next year, you can ask me the question, what do you do with the 2 billion rand for facilities? At the present moment, there is money allocated for that, but given the competing priorities on the ground, it is unable to focus entirely on that task. But lastly, it is not true they are not facilities entirely. There are facilities. We have said lower the tariffs for municipalities so that developmental people on the grassroots level can have access. I've repeated this question. There is a soccer field in Soweto where Moroka Salos was drowned and sent to the 2nd division, Dobsonville Stadium. The people of Dobsonville cannot access that stadium because of the high tariffs. Next door, that stadium, there is a rugby field. And they lower the tariffs, allow people in the townships, soccer clubs and community development clubs, not proper people who are developing sports on the ground, allow them to use those facilities, if needs be, free of charge. Moroka Swallows will come back, and then we will pay the tariffs for the Dobsonville Stadium.
Okay. All right, Sabi is on the floor, and he's just caught up with the chairperson of the Eminent Persons Group, If we could just get your final thoughts with him on transformation, Thabiso.
We'll do, Peter. I think the minister right there has just answered Tulani Tuswa's question on how do you emphasize on development when there are no facilities. Minister said it right there. There are facilities. It's a matter of access. Can I get you to stand this way so we can get you on those cameras, because the camera loves you, sir. How do we wrap this up? And as far as the EPG is concerned, a lot has been said. We heard what the minister said. We heard Dr. Vilibasson said. South Africa sits back and say, is enough being done? Is the EPG the right group that are doing it for us?
Well, thank you very much, and I hope my being stuck on accident in Pretoria, which I sent a message, was also relayed. But having said that, I think EPG has raised the issue of sports transformation back into the agenda. Number two, as Willie Basson was saying, we now have a more intelligent scientific basis to engage on the issue of transformation, because we have figures and federations have committed. But the most important thing from this point onwards, because we can understand the frustration of the nation, transformation from this point onwards, as per the advice that we've given, and the minister is quite decisive on that, will need courage and decisiveness and consequences now that commitments have been made. But also very important is the issue of interdepartmental coordination. If basic education doesn't come to the play, to say we are introducing sports into schools and you have fragmentation between departments, you want to have the massification of development at a lower level. And also the comment on the communities, I'm very happy that the minister is touching on the already available facilities, because that's the key thing. Whilst we have a long-term plan of infrastructure development, what are we doing with what we have? Sometimes even busing people to the neighboring suburbs, because some of them do have plenty of facilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Babu Somadoda Fikile. Peter, we got to the stage of Durban 2022. I was with some of the panelists in Auckland when the announcement was made. In fact, on my left-hand side, Mr. Gert and Sam, I don't think he slept the whole week when the announcement was made. It's finally here. It's coming. I'm going to be chatting to some athletes, because these are the people, I think a lot of people at home would like to ask the question, how do you finally feel to have a world championship, based on your doorstep, instead of having to go overseas to compete? I'll hand over to you, Peter, to unpack it first, and then I'll go chat to our athletes. All
right, so you start walking to the athletes. I'm going to ask very quickly, introduce our two guests that have joined Minister Fikile and Mbalula, and I want to say welcome to the Director General at the Department of Sports and Recreation, Mr. Alec Moemi. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome. You were there as well in Auckland when the news was received. I'm going to ask you about the bid actually just now, and then also want to welcome the Deputy City Manager in Durban, eThekwini Metro. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Musa Gumede, and you must be very excited, or maybe even sweating a little bit, because now you've got a timeline and money to find. But very briefly, Mr. Moemi, if I could just ask you, what was the compelling case that we put forward for Durban to win the bid?
I think summarily 3 issues. First and foremost, that our bid would have been most probable and the most cheapest and most compact, on the basis that we were thriving on the legacy of the 2010 Football World Cup and the facilities built during that period, and therefore we needed no new infrastructure to deliver the games, and that the infrastructure in Durban is so close by to each other that within a radius of 3 kilometers that will deliver the most compact games ever in the 100-year history of the Commonwealth Games. Secondly, the capacity of the country and the city of eThekwini to be able to respond to hosting these games and to do a good job. But thirdly, the issue of legacy, the games would live for the city and the city region as well as the country as a whole, both economically as well as the legacy for youth. So this was our key compelling case. In summary, these three key pointers were the ones driving the essence of our bid, the ability to deliver the most affordable games with what we have and to also maximize the returns.
So was it a relief for the Commonwealth Games Committee because they were the only bidders? If we didn't have a good bid, were we going to have no games?
Certainly, we would not have had any games. I think they would have looked at a plan B of looking elsewhere. But it must not be, the impression mustn't be created that it was an easy sailing race. In truth, when the bid started, there were 4 bidders originally. And Durban was a late start because we needed our cabinet to actually endorse the bid. And we submitted actually on the eve of the date for bidding our intention to bid. And when we did, immediately 2 other cities withdrew from the race. And only the Canadians thought that they will brave the race. But once we got all the African countries to support our bid and to vote with us in Botswana, President Gideon Sembe was the one that hosted the dinner in Botswana during the Youth Games to encourage members of the Commonwealth Games federations on the African continent to support us. And also with the support of Oceania, the bid was closed. We already had 64% of the votes required to win prior to us actually going to Auckland. Okay. And it was very obvious that the Canadians had to withdraw. And when they did, however, they didn't concede defeat like honest people. They had to raise all sorts of things and run a very terrible campaign against our country, and which some here bought and wanted to discredit our bid. But our bid was strong by far, and that's why all others had to withdraw.
Okay. Dr. Gumede, are we ready? Part of what Mr. Moemi said was that we kind of have facilities in play already, but I'm sure upgrades and more infrastructure is required. Is there a plan for that?
Yes, Peter. In fact, Durban has already started making sure that 7 years is not seen as a long time. We're starting early. If you go to the beach now, as we speak, you will see that the swimming pool is under renovation. Our plans were in place. We just had to adjust to meet the requirements of the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics. Secondly, our people, I think, have been with us throughout the bidding process, and therefore we believe we've got the support as well of our people. As we move forward, as we implement the legacy of the Games, we believe they'll be behind us. The other major infrastructure like the stadium, both stadia, because we'll use both the rugby and the soccer, the football stadium, are ready. They may need, the football stadium will need a track. We have budgeted for the track as part of this budget for the Commonwealth Games, and it's a matter of putting the bids out there and for the people to actually respond and complete the project, which would mean that we then have to have a program to test the field, the track, which has now becomes an opportunity for the athletics federations to give us a program that will take us between now and 2022 in order for athletes to be ready and the facility to be ready as well. The other facilities are all within the 2.5 kilometer radius, except for one, which is cycling, which we would have taken to the Pietermaritzburg area, but the rest of the facilities are ready. The major issue infrastructurally would be the village, but it's part of our plan anyway for human settlements at Konubia. You may not know that we are building a new city within eThekwini, Konubia, around the airport, which will house about 25,000 people over the next few years. So this is part of that city that we're developing there. That's our major infrastructural project that we'll have to build. Otherwise, everything else, if the games were next year, would be ready.
Okay. Mr. Moemi, we'll talk about the economics of holding Commonwealth Games shortly, but Minister, Was it easy to convince cabinet to do this? And then, first time in Africa. This is more than just about Durban and South Africa, isn't it?
I was not there in 2010, but this one was very difficult to convince cabinet. And I think our cabinet accepted this for the goodwill of youngsters and the youth of South Africa. We put up a proposal in cabinet of first the Olympics, which was the big fish. And then the cabinet did not reject and said that better go for the option of the Commonwealth Games and build on that for the Olympics going into the future, which I was a very, very much well-informed decision. And then we then had to deal with the treasury. Those people are difficult. No? I don't want to be a minister of finance because to me it will be a razzmatazz every day and so on. Nene is a very difficult minister, justifiably so, because if we would have had a minister who agrees with everything, we will not have a country. So it was not easy. It was not easy. But at the end of the day, we agreed, and then there was goodwill, and that after they challenged us to do the things that the DG and eThekwini have actually spoken about to come within the budget, because we now have got we've got the experience. You know, you remember with the 2010 World Cup, we ended up building a stadium in Cape Town. Sept Blatter just coming with a helicopter, we need a stadium here and all of that. And then you build a stadium. So this time, I think the minister, Nhlanhla Nene, was part of that. And so he was very much, very clear that you must remain within budget. Where are you going to get money? You know, in terms of the MTSF and all of that, in terms of the planning, we've got no new money. You've got to pull this thing within your means, and you should also be able to contribute. So it was not an easy task to convince cabinet, especially treasury, about this. But the goodwill will always be there and is always there. And as South Africa,
the continent as well.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thabiso, very quickly, if you could embrace this Commonwealth Games. I think you've got a few people that you're chatting to there.
Definitely, Peter. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with a stalwart of South African athletics. I mean, everyone knows this man. Medalist, Olympic medalist. Please stand up. I need to answer this question. You got the Commonwealth Games as we had. Come this way. Commonwealth Games coming to South Africa 2022. You might not be participating. I think for me and you, we've been there, done it. It might be too far. But you got major championships coming at home. And as an athlete who always goes out and participates out there, what would it mean if you had these opportunities a bit earlier?
This is actually a great refreshment for sports in South Africa. I mean, South Africa has come a long way in terms of sports, all the way back in the days. And for us to be able to host 2022 Commonwealth Games, it's a great step into the future. I know we wanted the Olympic Games, like the minister said, but the Commonwealth is a mini Olympic Games, and all the sporting codes have contributed with their performance, so that we are able to host the game. So for me, I won't be there, but it's a great refreshment to know that we are moving forward.
Thank you very much, Cosmo. Let me move across again. There's some young ones that I think could possibly be at the Commonwealth Games. In fact, they just over the right-hand side of I hope you can bear with me, and I'll walk across as the camera gets me. This young man looks very fresh. I need to speak to you, young man. What do you do?
Hello, I'm a sport climber.
What does a sport climber do?
Pretty much we climb indoor artificial walls.
So, Mr. Gideon Sam, I'm not sure whether sport climbing is on Commonwealth Games. Can we get this young man into the Commonwealth Games? I'm just trying to see if maybe the boss man can get you the Commonwealth Games.
Can you?
Well, there you have it. I mean, South African sports, as I said, Peter, everyone wants to be part of 2022. I certainly am looking forward to it. I might not be working there. I think I might have retired by then, but you're definitely going to have fun. 2022, I'll definitely be in my hometown, Pietermaritzburg, and I'm definitely going to enjoy it as well. Peter, over to you.
Okay, just before we take a quick break, one last question, because this will come up time and time again. Can we afford to be having Commonwealth Games, especially when we're wanting to be building cricket fields in Soweto? If you could answer very briefly the economics of it. Is there a business case for it?
Yes, I think there is, and no doubt there is. From what the minister has said, We aren't asking for any new money. We are actually fast-tracking what has already been planned. We have been understudying Glasgow, and we are also now understudying Gold Coast in Australia. And our template was used based on that. And we have now costed what the games would return. In terms of our study based on the Glasgow template, we estimated that it will be about 13 billion return. But we also commissioned an independent study by Ernst & Young, which also indicated that it will actually be 20 billion. So it was on the basis of this strength and the fact that we weren't asking for any new money that the Treasury agreed.
Okay, fantastic. And that's where we're going to leave this discussion on the Commonwealth Games 2022. When we come back, we're going to start to recognize some very special people and some special codes as well. Stay with us.